Yeah, we are still looking at inorganic chemistry. We are still looking at inorganic qualitative analysis. Before we will embark on organic itself. So here, today we have this question. You are provided with solid D. Carry out the following tests and record your observation and inferences in the space provided. Describe the solid of D. That one, leave it out. So place about a half of the solid D in a dry test tube. Heat it strongly and test for any gas produced using a blue and red litmus paper. So after doing the experiment, it was observed that a blue litmus paper remains blue. Red litmus paper remains red. So that means that whatever gas that was produced, that gas was a neutral gas. Neutral gas present. Neutral gas. It was a neutral gas, so it could not change the blue litmus paper to red, and red could not change it to blue, so it was a neutral gas. Place the rest of the solid D in a boiling tube and add about 10 centimeters cube of distilled water. Shake well and use about 2 centimeters cube or portion for each of the following tests. So solid D dissolves in water, distilled water, to form a colorless solution. So if the solid dissolves in water, forming a colorless solution, it means that the colored ions are copper, ion 2, and ion 3 are absent. We choose to give the ions or the inference of the ions which are absent because if it is colorless, there are so many ions which are present. Magnesium, zinc, barium, calcium, all those salts are, most of them, they form a colorless solution. Therefore, we give those that give, this one is blue, this one is green, and this one is brown. So the ions, the salts of these salts are brown, blue, green, and blue. So we give the inferences to make work easier. To one of the portion, add sodium hydroxide dropwise until in excess. So we are adding sodium hydroxide. And then a white precipitate is formed which dissolves in excess. So it means the amphoteric ions are present. The one we call ZAP, zinc ions, aluminum ions, and lead ions. Are present. To the second portion, add aqueous ammonia dropwise until in excess. A white precipitate is formed which dissolves in excess. So if a white precipitate dissolves and then it confirms that zinc two positive are present. To the third portion, add about 5 drops of sodium chloride solution. Now we are adding sodium chloride. Here we are concerned about the chloride ions. no white PPT formed. So if there was a white precipitate, we expected that there could be lead or silver. Silver chloride is a white precipitate, lead chloride is a white precipitate. So since there is no white precipitate, it means that lead 2 positive, you can even say silver, are absent. This one, lead, silver chloride is a white precipitate, lead chloride is a white precipitate, so it forms a white precipitate. To the fourth portion, add dilute barium nitrate. So we are adding barium nitrate, dilute barium nitrate, and then there's no white PPT. So barium could form a white precipitate with the sulfate, with the sulfite, and the carbonate. But now, since there is no white precipitate, it means all of these are absent. To the fifth portion, add lead nitrate and warm. So white precipitate which dissolves on warming. If a white precipitate is, and we are adding this, remember when we add lead nitrate, a white precipitate is formed. It means therein there is a sulfate, there is a carbonate, there is a sulfite. We suspect all these are there, and there could be a chloride. But when you are adding lead nitrate and then you warm, the white precipitate dissolves on warming. That simply confirms the chloride ion, because lead chloride is the only white precipitate which dissolves on warming to form a colorless solution. Therefore, this confirms that it is the chloride ions that are present. So, and then identify solid D. So to identify solid T, you check the cation present and the anion present. The anion present is chloride ions and the cation present is zinc. Therefore, the salt is zinc chloride. The salt is zinc chloride. Thank you. We can look at another example here. There is another example here, so that we can do as many as we want. Yes, so let us look at this another question here. Heat 3/4 of solid X gently and then strongly. A colorless liquid forms on the cooler parts of the test tube. So that is our observation number 1, that a colorless liquid is formed at the cooler parts of the test tube. So that one simply confirms that here the salt is hydrated salt, or you can say water. The salt contains water of crystallization. The blue litmus paper turns red and red remains red. So meaning the acidic gas or hydrogen ions present. Add about 10 centimeters cube of distilled water to a remaining amount of solid X. Solid X dissolves to form a colorless solution. So if it forms a colorless solution, it means that the copper, the ion 2, the ion 3, which is brown, is absent. Divide the solution into 6 portions. To the first portion, add sodium hydroxide dropwise until in excess. So the observation is that a white PPT is formed which dissolves in excess sodium hydroxide. A white precipitate is formed which dissolves in excess. So whenever sodium hydroxide is added, a white precipitate is formed which dissolves in excess. It simply confirms the ZAP. ZAP means zinc ions, aluminium ions, and lead ions. These are called amphoteric ions. Present, and then lead 2 positive present. To the second portion, add ammonia solution dropwise until in excess. So ammonia solution simply means ammonium hydroxide. So a white precipitate is formed insoluble in excess. But we have said this one are present. So if a white precipitate is formed which does not dissolve in excess sodium hydroxide, it simply means that the zinc 2 positive is absent. But if this one is absent, then what could be present? Because we have the 3 of them. It means either aluminium 3 positive, comma, lead 2 positive is present. So you can choose to give this as the answer and it is correct, or you can give this and this present and the answer is correct. To the third portion, add 4 drops of potassium iodide. Remember when we were talking about the reagent potassium iodide, we expect a yellow precipitate. We don't expect a white precipitate when we are adding potassium iodide. Therefore, the observation here is that no yellow precipitate is formed. So there is no yellow. If there is no yellow precipitate, it means there was no lead ions. Lead plus iodine, it forms lead iodide, which is yellow. But now if it is no yellow precipitate, means that the lead 2 positive is absent. Now we are doing elimination method. We have already eliminated zinc ions. We have eliminated now lead. So probably what is inside there is aluminium. So let us see, because it is the one which has remained. To the fourth portion, add 3 drops of lead nitrate. So before we move to the next one, if lead is absent, then it means that aluminium 3 positive is present. Yeah, it means that aluminium 3 positive is present. This one is absent, this one is present, because this cannot form a yellow precipitate with iodine. So this one is present. To the fourth portion, add 3 drops of lead nitrate. So lead nitrate, a white precipitate is formed. So if a white precipitate is formed and we are adding lead, then we have 4 anions that are present. That is the sulfate, the sulfite, the carbonate, 2 minus, the carbonate, and then the chloride. Because it is lead, so all of these are present. All of them are present. To the fourth portion, add barium nitrate followed by nitric acid. Barium followed by nitric. A white precipitate is formed. A white precipitate is formed which does not dissolve in excess. So a white precipitate is formed which does not dissolve in excess. So if a white precipitate is formed and it does not dissolve in excess, then it says if it dissolves in excess, then the sulfite and the carbonate are present. If it does not dissolve in acid, sorry, not in excess, if the white precipitate does not dissolve in the acid, then it means that the sulfate and the chloride can be there, present. So we suspect either this or this is there because it did not dissolve in the acid. But if it dissolves in the acid, then the sulfite and the carbonate are present. Last one, we are adding silver nitrate. Silver nitrate, there is no white PPT. Silver nitrate will form a white precipitate with chlorine. But now, since there is no white precipitate, it means that the chloride ions are absent. Now, the chloride ions are here, we suspected that it was present. Chloride ions was present. But now, here in the next one, we have disqualified chloride. So, what could be there? Most probably, the sulfate ions is the one that is present. So, when now you want to give the name of solid X, X is aluminium. Because here we said aluminium is present. Aluminium sulfate. Aluminium sulfate is the compound that is present here. Thank you. If you find this video worthy, if it nices you, you can share and then subscribe. Thank you. Thank you very much.